have something in development, you should see the outcome of it, functionally right away. And what we know now from a lot of experimental evidence in animal models, as well as studies that are now longitudinal in human populations rather than just simply measuring something at one particular time, that you can see small changes, modest changes, not necessarily changes in function that are part of the diagnostic criteria for a particular neuropsychiatric disorder, but nonetheless you can see these subtle changes which then ultimately are the precursors for the diagnoses of specific disorders. Accepting that you're not going to see psychosis at the age of 3, I think was a big step too.
Are there specific periods that are critical, or does it...
Add phone. The system is searching for your phone. Vehicle is moving. Current function not available.
Circuits don't form exactly at the same time. So the period of time that they're most sensitive to experience, and then when that ends or at least gets reduced over time, varies. Sensory and motor systems develop really early, so they're sensitive to critical periods very early in childhood, whereas more complex systems that underlie development of executive functions and cognition and emotional regulation, those are occurring over an extended period of time. And I think that there's now an appreciation that adolescence may be a really unique period in which a number of systems are...
Add phone. The system is searching for your phone. Using your handset, look for a Bluetooth device called My Car.
Systems are somewhat unstable.
Vehicle is moving. Current function not available.
On the exciting and positive side, open to interventions and treatments.
Dr. Mr. Vanderbilt?
I think that when we flip that on the clinical side, like you were saying, this may provide us a sense of when and how we could have emphasis to clinical placement intervention. So, for example, what we've learned about language development suggests that we really need to push that as early as we possibly can. What we're increasingly learning about that adolescent time period may point us to different treatments for adolescents or more intensive treatments for adolescents that will allow them to benefit in a similar way to children, to adults. But for whatever reason, for the reason of sensitive periods, there are certain treatments they don't seem to respond as well to if we administer them in a standard way.
How can an understanding of neurodevelopment lead to earlier or more effective interventions?
I think that this is a place where there's a lot of opportunity and only emerging knowledge. So there are some instances where we're beginning to understand the neurological underpinnings of specific rare genetic disorders that manifest across development. And that may be one of the first places where we see how you can actually intervene at a particular time point using a very specific understanding of the neuroscience. That's tremendously exciting to think about. But we're just really at the very beginning of that work.
Vehicle is moving. Current function not available.
Better understanding of neurodevelopment and the origins of disorders.
Add phone. The system is searching for your phone.
Specific meaning.
Vehicle is moving. Current function not available.
I can't say that I know exactly how that will play out. There are places where we do know things. So early intensive behavioral interventions are hugely important, have a major impact that wouldn't be seen if you applied the same intervention, say, in a 12-year-old or a 20-year-old. That's something that we didn't have a clear understanding of a couple of decades ago, but that now is really the standard of care. I hope that we see the same thing beginning to emerge as
phone. The system is searching for your phone. Using your handset, look for a Bluetooth device called My Car.
I'm Cynthia Kramer.
Vehicle is moving. Current function not available. Add phone. The system is searching for your phone. Using your handset, look for a Bluetooth device called My Car.
Oh, 0993 FCC 79E, my car.
Please confirm the PIN matches using the hand. XT1254. Connected.
Podcast for the December issue of Neuropharmacology Pharmacology Reviews. I'm Cynthia Kramer. Stress plays a key role in a number of neurological disorders, including anxiety and post-traumatic stress disorder. Advances in the fields of genetics, epigenetics, neuroimaging, and neural and computational models lead to new understandings on the origin of stress and its impacts. The latest issue of Neuropsychopharmacology Reviews is titled Impact of Stress on the Brain, Pathology, Treatment, and Prevention. Editors of the reviews issue are Carrie Ressler, Chief Scientific Officer and Chief of the Depression and Anxiety Division at McLean Hospital of Harvard Medical School, and Jordan Smoller, Director of the Psychiatric and Neurodevelopmental Unit at Massachusetts General Hospital. They lay out why stress is so important. First, Dr. Smoller.
Broadly speaking, stress, adversity, trauma, a whole class of environmental exposures that are related to stress have been effect on risk for and course of a very broad range of neuropsychiatric disorders. The other thing about stress is that we actually are learning quite a bit about how it operates in terms of affecting the structure and function of the brain, its interaction with genetics, and increasingly the emerging field of epigenetics and ways in which stress and experience may modify gene expression in ways that we can actually begin to connect up with how the brain is operating.
So I'd like to go through a few different sections in the review. First, I'd like to talk about the relationship between fear regulation and the brain circuitry. And you write in the editorial that much has changed in the past decade. Why are you taking a closer look at this particular field?
So I think it's really because that the two areas that probably have made the most progress in terms of understanding the neural circuits of behavior are those of addiction and fear. And one might argue that they're some of the simplest emotions, and also they're the ones that are the easiest to modulate neurotic. And so in the same way that I don't think we really have strong animal models of post-traumatic stress disorder per se, we do have strong animal models of fear learning or threat learning. And we can essentially model fear in a mouse the same way we model the fear learning process.
And what are some of the highlights of the papers about fear in this review?
Sure. So Steve Marin and Andrew Holmes have an article entitled Stress and Fear Extinction, and that really will examine a range of fear processing, but particularly how stress affects contextual fear learning related to dysregulation of stress response and fear systems that occurs in a broad variety of anxiety disorders. A paper by Pirosini and Fanzelo also looks at the process of fear sensitization caused by acute traumatic stress, so perhaps one of the better model of PTSD, where you're really combining both acute stress with fear learning and fear processing as the readout. And that's in many ways what we see in humans with PTSD, that prior trauma leads to an alteration in how their neural systems process fear. And so we think that this sort of approach is a good way of probing the neural circuits of fear processing.
This could lead to potential treatments. First of all, according to Dr. Ressler, a better understanding of the learning and memory processes in the brain could lead to new approaches for therapy.
Second,
circuitry, we can essentially hack into the normal mechanisms for fear learning and fear extinction to perhaps develop novel treatments that combine, for example, cognitive behavioral therapy and certain pharmacologic interventions to accelerate fear extinction, or even to begin to erase memory traces of trauma. I think in the area of genetics, for example, as we get novel targets from genetic studies, and as they begin to nominate very specific gene products and pathways, again, we're going to be in a much better position to begin to work on how those gene systems are involved.
Dr. Ressler?
I would say that one theme that really I think runs throughout the issue is the progress that's been made on understanding circuits, and that we've made terrific progress in the field in the last 20 or 30 years, where effectively the brain was seen as sort of a bag of chemicals. We hoped that by mildly modulating one monoamine or another, that would shift how the brain responded broadly. That we now appreciate that, particularly in stress-related disorders, trauma-related disorders, and depression, that the particular memories that are component of this disorder are critical, and the only way we're going to get to those memories is not through a broad
jealousy really speaks more about you than you do. It's all about you.
Yes.
It's not you.
And I noticed, like, I know for me, I would look at, people in the fitness movement who have made careers out of it, and I'm like, man, they get paid for that. I want to get paid for that. And it was like this little pang of like desire and jealousy, like, and not in like a romantic jealousy way, but in a substantive, like, God, I want that, like a yearning. And we should pay attention to that stuff. I think one of the first things that we can do is really pay attention to our inner monologue. And I believe in, like, most of the things I've done in business. It's only been a few years, so my journey's just starting, but it's all based on a gut check. It's like pure, am I feeling you or this or not? And if it's not, like, you're out of my sphere, man. Like,
But
I have no time.
you have to be clear before you can trust
Yeah, you have to,
your gut check,
exactly. So you
know
have
what I
to
mean?
clear it out. And I actually think,
Because your gut check will send you down a dark alleyway.
Yeah,
If you're
true.
Like, if you don't
True.
know who you are, you know what I mean? Like, 'cause
Very
that
true.
gut check could be jealousy. Like, you're
Yes.
confusing these conflicting emotions.
right, absolutely. Well, one thing that has helped me is meditation. I practice
This is what I was driving at.
Yeah.
Meditation.
Okay,
I just let
I'm
you
with
do
you.
it.
So I dabbled in so many types of meditation, man. I mean, like, it was super hard for me. Like, that's not my natural frequency. Like, I'm not like,
You're vibrating at you're at like 3,000 hertz or whatever.
I'm like a living earthquake. So, I tried guided meditation and, like, Gabrielle Bernstein podcasts and, like, all kinds of stuff, which were fine. But what really helped me was transcendental meditation. So 20 minutes in the morning, 20 minutes in the evening. And it's a it's almost like just the people blocker.
Right.
And yeah, I mean, you just it's a portable thing. You just speed you.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that if you're not kind of looking inward in that way, then when you're asking yourself these important questions, like what should I do with my life, where do I want to invest all? These are huge questions that can change the trajectory of everything that you're doing. Like you better make sure that you're dialed up so that you're making the right choice and that you can rely on your instincts. I mean, when I was out partying and drinking all the time, my instinct, like, oh well, my instinct says do this.
Right.
That's a terrible instinct.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
and that's a bad move.
so
right.
like the gut check is good if you're like doing the work, the inside
Yeah,
work.
I agree.
But
I agree.
You got to get to that point.
But I do think that, barring sort of the big mistake gut check, gut feelings, people are scared of failing. And I think people need to get a little bit more comfortable with failure. I think if something feels scary to me and I can rationalize reasons why it's not particularly harmful, I usually do it, because I think that fear can be a really good form of fuel to do stuff. And of course that's all this balanced with using rational thoughts, not put yourself in danger, but
Well, I think it's okay to be afraid of failing, but doing it anyway. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's sort of like acting as if in the face of that and being willing to fail, like embracing, that failure is part of growth. But
Yeah.
if you're not like failing all the time at whatever, then you're not pushing yourself hard enough to expand.
yeah, I mean, I think that the complacency and the feeling, if you're feeling comfortable all the time, you probably need to be doing some more exciting shit.
Right. Well, I think people that feel comfortable all the time probably aren't very happy.
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to like that 50%, like, you're just okay, it's not necessarily like a clinical depression, or there's no real low. But if you're like in that just mediocre state, like, release that mediocrity. Like, there's so much out there that can really
Especially as adults, we feel like, well, I already wrote my story. I'm already this, and I'm already that. I'm already a dad. I'm already...
You look like you would be good to eat. Yeah, you look like you would be good to eat. How come you guys are about 4 feet tall? You gotta be like the ones. Gobble gobble. Gobble? Hey, turkey buns. There's your partner there. Hi. These are wild gobblers. They're just like right here. What are you doing? What are you doing?
A week later, and it's like when you look at the timeline, like I was talking about this with Dan, he had his panic attack in 2004, and he didn't do his first 5-minute meditation until 2009. That's 5 years later.
Yeah.
So it's like the neatly packaged narrative that the media, you know, is shoving down your throat isn't actually real. You know, this is like hard work, and it's like, you know, throwing pebbles in the pond, and it's putting your toe in the water, and then slipping and doing a million things that are embarrassing and messing up and failing and not knowing what you're doing and questioning yourself and all of these things. But all of those things are not failures; they're successes, because they're just steps along this journey. You know, and so I think the important thing is to embark on the journey, to have the courage to embrace the not knowing, and it doesn't have to be about goal setting or achieving some objective. It's about just embracing something different in you, something that might be intimidating, but you're inexplicably drawn to, and just not trying to understand the why behind it.
Yeah, and I think almost all of my lessons in the past few years have been in retrospect. Like, it's not like in the moment I'm necessarily understanding the poignancy of something in that time. I think it's the reflection that is important.
You look back on it, and it seems to create this. You can write your story retrospectively by looking backwards and going, "Oh, this makes perfect sense." Of course, you know what I mean? Like that doesn't just happen. And that's happened to me many times. These weird things that have happened. I'm sure you've experienced that.
Absolutely.
And then you can write the narrative like backwards like that. But when it's happening, it doesn't make sense. You don't understand it. And I think it's about being okay with that.
Yeah, you do. And I think that being okay with that discomfort, like, a lot of life is uncomfortable. It's not always going to be like, I do believe in celebrating little victories, 100%. But most of the time, if you have any type of momentum, you're going to have discomfort, a lot of discomfort.
Well, discomfort is the crucible for growth and change anyway. Like, you should welcome the discomfort. If you're uncomfortable, then something's happening.
Yeah.
You know?
Definitely. I mean, I feel that all the time, and I think people, like you mentioned about Dan Harris, or even people's like success stories. You know, you look at people, whatever, Warren Buffett, like these icons in Western society, and when you break down those stories, you know, whether in their books or whatever, you're like, damn, that was a lot of hustle. Like, that was a lot of little stepping stones and a lot of seeds planted. Like, I say, like, plant a whole field of seeds. You don't know what's going to sprout. Like, those connections might not even happen until decades later. And it is in retrospect that sort of the synchronicity of things kind of pop up, and you're like, whoa, like, that was absolutely supposed to happen.
Right, and it's about not making judgment calls on the good or the bad of whatever is happening. Like right when you walked in, we were talking before we started recording, and you were supposed to go to LA to do this TV show, right?
In 3 days.
And social media, you were getting all ready to go. This is exciting thing, and then at the last minute, so what happened like this?
So I was supposed to. I'm still so frustrated. But literally, the executive producer called me like an hour ago. I was supposed to be on the show with NBC and Esquire Network, where it's called Enter the Wild, and we were going to literally live in the wild for a month with this survival tracker professional guy, Tom Brown, and apparently he pulled out from the show, and now it's
3 days before.
3 days. I mean, this was like, if anyone can imagine taking a month away from your life, literally off the grid, no business calls, no family calls, nothing.
Yeah, you gotta get ready.
I mean, that is like
a lot of prep.
That is everything. And I work with, because I have such like my work is like with a lot of different brands and a lot of different studios. It's not like I tell one boss and I take a leave. You know, I had to like contact like 20 people to get their okay, or just to give them notice. So yes, to say that was like, I mean, that was a blow, man. And just that call, and I was so excited about it. I was excited about like doing this amazing thing. I was like, this is my next adventure. Like, this is, you know, I'm in that place where I'm like, what's next? Like, I want something else. And the driven part of me is like, yeah, the fish that's you're challenging me, some warrior chick in the woods. And yeah, it looks like very likely it's not going to happen now. And and that's creating space. But I know well enough to know that is creating space for whatever it is I'm supposed to do.
Yeah, I mean, the next thing that came out of your mouth was like, well, there obviously is something better, or I wasn't supposed to do that. It's sort of, you were talking about planting a ton of seeds. Well, that was a seed that germinated and was starting to grow, and it's about to sprout. So it's like, all right, well, what other seeds look like they're popping up over here? Let's just go over there.
Yeah, and like, you know, my sister's going to Thailand next week from India, and I'm like, maybe I should be going to Thailand. You know, I mean, it's just like, that's how my mind works. And it's only through falling flat on my face, hatha yoga, very, very different types of yoga than I'm used to, which is a vinyasa practice. But what was so interesting to me was not the yoga at all. It was more like the interactions with like travelers and these like just nomadic kind of folks who find themselves at like a satsang in this random, it was like this Brazilian picture of this like Brazilian guru and 100 random people just like chanting, and I'm like, and they're all very visually different, all colors, all ages, and I'm just like, we all are here. Like it was a weird, it's rare that I had these like moments to just give me absolute pause, and I'm like, this is like, we're all here, this time-space continuum. I don't know, it was like this really like weird snapshot that I recognize as a snapshot, which is also rare. So India was amazing. Rishikesh was just such a trip and beautiful, and right at the foot of the Himalayas. Goa, we also so Goa is the most southern state, but then the most southern beach in Goa is where we were, and I cannot believe I'm forgetting the name. Maybe that's a good thing because I don't want it to get overcrowded because it's already getting too touristy. But and it was such a gift to be able to hang out with my mom and my sister. Like I don't remember the last time we spent more than 3 days together.
Right.
So I think I have a tattoo on my arm. These are swallows, and it's 3 birds, and the middle one is my mom, the bottom one is my sister, the top one is me, and it just kind of honors all our journeys.
Right.
And my mom is a real example of reinvention. She's a Cuban refugee and taught herself English watching Sesame Street and PBS at 16, and then 8 years later was in medical school. So she's a really inspiring story for me. And then my sister, even though she's my little sister, is way wiser than I probably will ever be, and is now living in India and working for an NGO and just literally changing the world. So I'm sort of bookended by these amazing women who inspire me in very, very unique ways. And it wasn't lost on me that we were kind of like all 3 of us on this beach in India, and I managed to take a month off. And it was just like I was like, okay, sunshine, this is it, like literally in a bottle. So it was great.
That's really cool. What do you think about this sort of dearth of female role models? We're in the world of the Kardashians.
Oh my God, I know.
Bachelorette and all this sort of thing, and there just really aren't. And as a father of 2 young girls, like I think a lot about that. Like, I want my daughters to aspire to their version of greatness or expansion or authenticity, and who are they looking to? You know what I mean? Who are the people that are around that they can latch onto? And we're in a crisis.
It's a huge crisis. I mean,
and it's not that there aren't amazing women doing incredibly inspiring things all over the place, but it's a misdirect when it comes to media.
The most readily available images, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I'm lucky, and your kids are lucky because they're surrounded by their mom. But I think unfortunately, it's starting from the closest images that you have to you, for a lot of girls, and I don't know how to change it. I mean, I would like to think like that is really one of the things I want to do with Undo. We sort of featured these vignettes and empowering stories of real people doing awesome stuff, and we want to encourage people to tell their stories and be visible and vocal about the stuff that they're doing, because then that sort of raises the consciousness a little bit and the dialogue. But in terms of like crazy celebrity culture and the rabbit hole of like Us Weekly, which I will definitely buy on a plane, and whatever, I've done it, I admit it, but I'm also old enough to know, it's like, would I give that to like a little kid and show that as an example of what to be in the world? Absolutely not. I think that there is a mass yearning for that. It's not an isolated thing, so it seems like it could be something that you could weave into the brand consultancy work that you do, like to be able to sort of raise the pedestal of maybe some women that you haven't heard of and put them in an ad for a brand in a way that's aspirational for young girls. I mean, there has to be opportunities for that. There are really
work within the system.
There are really good organizations that I've worked with. Like I Am That Girl is kind of, the messaging behind it is really cool. It's kind of like, I am that girl it's basically getting accomplished people to be like, yeah, I am that girl who was made fun of for running, which I literally was. I was made fun of, by the way, for how I ran when I was in 6th grade. Little things like that to sort of like spark dialogue and inspire folks. But I think from an aesthetic perspective, from like a stylized perspective, it's really important to sort of bring people from like the fray and bring them in. And I feel like
do for women. Like, I think that it's absolutely a beacon. I think the wellness movement is a beacon of light for women, and in a really healthy way, not in a way that's focused on body image, but in a way that's focused on empowerment, in a very different. It's a different type of feminism, I think.
Honestly, the future. Interesting. We got to wrap it up here in a couple minutes, but I did want to ask you about your experience going up to Vermont and working with the Love Your Brain guys with Kevin.
Those guys.
So when we were in Vegas, we had the great honor of meeting the Pierce brothers. And Kevin Pierce, for those who don't know, was an incredible snowboarder who was well on his way to the Olympics and potentially beating Shaun White. And he had a massive head injury shortly before 2 Olympics ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's been a long road back for him with his health, and he's doing great now. There was an amazing documentary made about his life called The Crash Reel, which was on HBO. I don't know if it's still airing, but if you have a chance to see this documentary, it's extraordinary. And Robin and I both had the great opportunity to meet these guys at this event, and it was really touching. You know, they're special guys.
Very special guys.
And they put together. So they have a nonprofit called Love Your Brain, and they were putting together a group of people to do the Burlington Marathon, right? And you wanted to coach them and get them ready. So I want to hear about that.
It was so fun. I mean, gosh, that was so. Adam and Kevin reached out to me to coach the team, and Love Your Brain has had a lot of different participants on the team. So the Burlington Marathon allows people to participate in the marathon as a relay, as a half, or as a full distance. So people kind of pick the distances they were capable of running. And Will Halby his family has a farm in Vermont called, I can't forget the name of this either, my brain. So they have a farm in Vermont, and I'm so sorry, I forget the name. But they host us, and they have this like amazing community that they basically allow nonprofits to come and host their events there.
The pictures looked incredible.
It's stunning, and for me, like speaking of nature from Newark, that was
being an urban girl.
That I mean, I was like, oh, I really needed this air, I needed this greenery, and like truly on a cellular level, I needed it. So I basically helped coach the 70-person team, and some people were running 5Ks, some people were running 10Ks, a few people were running the full, a bunch of people running the half, and we spent 5 days out there, and it was so much more than marathon. Like, I got there on a Thursday, and we had like a storytelling circle where you have traumatic brain injury victims talking about, one girl was thrown off a horse, and like she's basically wheelchair bound, and she walked a mile. She walked a mile of the marathon. So little things like that are not so little when people tell their stories, and you're like, your jaw's on the floor, like, I can't believe I'm surrounded by so much goodness. And so it was really about raising awareness for traumatic brain injury and prevention. And I think what Love Your Brain is doing now, entering sort of this like team-based sports world, is really cool, because you're allowing the actual survivors to do something that's really empowering. Then you're spreading the message on prevention, and then you're creating this team bond around running, which is like freaking awesome. So it was a 5-day camp, and basically both the survivors and some educators and family members all came together. We did yoga, we had meditations, we cooked food, like an all like sort of
a 5-day awesome fest. I like love fest. Like by the end, we're all just like literally we're having a dance in the barn, and Zito Mountain Farm. That's the name of the farm. I knew it was in there. So then we're just having we're literally like dancing with our shoes off, and they had a DJ, and it was just like, oh, when do you get to do that? It was so special. Yeah. So we're gonna do that again. We're definitely gonna do that again.
Cool.
And you have to join us.
Yeah, I would love to. Actually, Adam emailed me. He was like, "Hey, can you help with some of the nutrition stuff?" And I think I was in the Middle East. I was traveling, and just wires got crossed. I didn't get back to him right away. But I would, I want to support what those guys are doing. They're doing amazing work.
It's such a need and such a misunderstanding. I mean, to be honest, it was because of Love Your Brain that I started wearing a bike helmet, and I just had a crash like last week. I mean, I'm totally fine, but I ended up getting dinged in my back wheel. Like, I just went over, and there's no. I mean, a brain is a pretty cute accessory, so I need that. So I'm really.
Your bike in New York City without a helmet.
Dude, for 5 years I did. I know it's stupid. It's absolutely stupid, but I know a lot of people do it, and it was truly because of that 5-day weekend. I was like, God, this is important, and not only is it important, it's a total slap in the face to these
love. I mean,
He is love. He is love. And I got to meet his parents, and I was just like, you guys, I feel like you're like, I love you. And they're like, they probably get it all the time because they're like total complete strangers, see this documentary, and they're just like, you're so special. Yeah, and they all are. And they, it's weird. It's not weird. It's fantastic that they happened to be so sort of in tune with relationships that they picked and cultivated such a special group of people for this camp. Like, it wasn't just like you applied and went. It was like people who really cared about sharing. And it wasn't necessarily about sharing TBI stories. It was just like about story and about connection and about feeling inspired no matter where you're coming from, and then leaving and taking that into your community and like doing something. And that spark, I mean, those are the seeds, those are the sparks that create movements. So I'm really happy to know those guys.
Yeah, cool. Well, I think that's a great place to start.
Yeah.
That was
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much. So cool. I love having you. You were
flew by.
fantastic. I know, it goes fast, right?
It's 120
So fast.
Right. So everybody out there, start writing your own story.
Yeah, man,
right?
on the pen.
That's right.
On the pen, oh my gosh.
And if you're
That's the
digging,
power of the
if you're
pen.
crushing, I should say, on Robin, the best way to seek her out and stalk her would be on Instagram. It's at RobinNYC, right?
That's
and
right.
On Twitter is the same.
Yep,
No, it's
and RobinArzon.com.
RobinArzon.com. And what's coming up next? Or, I
Yeah,
guess we don't
bunch
know.
of it. Well,
right?
I'll be running half naked at 50K in Burning Man.
Why not just totally naked? It's
You know,
Burning Man.
it's like, yeah, but you know, I don't.
What does half naked mean? You're half naked already.
It's true. So the booty shorts get smaller, and the sports bra gets a little bit even smaller.
All right. So
Yes.
Burning Man, marathon. What is it?
Burning Man 50K.
Burning Man 50K.
Then
When is that?
Lehigh, end of August. Then Lehigh the week after, New York City Marathon. And maybe, who knows, maybe I'll be in Thailand next week since I'm not going to be shooting a show.
Maybe there'll be another TV show.
Yeah, maybe. I'll welcome that.
Right? All right, cool. Well, I love you. It was
Love you too.
fantastic.
Thanks, Rich.
Thanks so much. And we'll do it again next time. I
Thanks,
come to
man.
New York, all right? All right, peace. Plans.
It's all about the peace, love, and the little
All right, you guys,
donuts,
that's this week's show.
which
I
I'll
hope you
never
dug
eat
it.
because I'm so
Love Robin.
fast.
I'm so glad that she took the time to sit down with me when I was in New York City. And I think you guys are inspired to undo ordinary. A couple quick announcements before I let you guys go. If you want to stay current with all things plant powered, subscribe to my newsletter at richroll.com. Very sensitive.
Ordinary.
The last thing I'm going to do is
Ordinary.
inundate your inbox.
Ordinary.
So basically what I do is I send out a weekly podcast update and then occasionally an email with product offerings and discounts and sales on the offerings that we have. And we have some cool discounts coming up oriented around our 100th podcast episode. 100, oh my god, 100 episodes, I can't believe it. And this is a special that I'm not going to tweet, I'm not going to Facebook. The only way to find out about it is to be on the email list. I'm trying to keep it exclusive for the people that really want to be on this plant power mission. So go and sign up. Again, not going to shellac your inbox. I'm going to send you guys good content or basically ways for you guys to save money. And that's essentially it. Of course, you can subscribe whenever you feel like it. If you're feeling stuck in your life, you want to undo ordinary, but you don't know how to start again. Well, I've got a course for that. It's called The Art of Living with Purpose. You can find it at mindbodygreen.com. It's all about how to do that inside work, how to get reconnected with yourself, how to tap into what is your true life purpose. And then it's all about setting goals, not just any goals, but the right goals for you. And then how to create that roadmap to ensure success. It's a couple hours of streaming video content, an online community, downloadable tools, lots of good stuff. And you can preview it and check it out and see if it's right for you before you purchase it. So you can check that out if you want more plants in your life. I've got a course for that too. It's called The Ultimate Guide to Plant-Based Nutrition, also at mindbodygreen.com. Similarly, tons of downloadable tools. I think it's like over 3 hours of streaming content, video content, online community, all that good stuff. Of course, for all your plant power provisions, go to richroll.com for our t-shirts, our nutritional products, our Jai C e-cookbook, our meditation program, signed copies of Finding Ultra if you have yet to read my book. And what else? So I get a lot of messages, emails from people that listen to the show and are new fans and say, I love the show. I really would like to be able to go back and listen to the earlier episodes, but when I go happens to your property and your minor children. So why procrastinate? Well, most people say it's too expensive, it's too time-consuming. I have the answer for you. It's LegalZoom.com. Too expensive? LegalZoom's prices just make sense. Too time-consuming? It just takes 20 minutes, and LegalZoom guides you through from start to finish. The service was developed by some of the best legal minds in the country, including my old boss, Robert Shapiro, who I used to work with.
That's crazy stuff.
And they make a payment for you to get the legal help.
Usually it helps me more than the other person. You stay detached from the result of whatever